Hello guys, this is the Gaming Revolution here and welcome back to an all new Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Zombies Blood of the Dead video. So obviously we got the Blood of the Dead trailer and we found out we are going to be playing as Primus on this map. Although at this current point in time I don't think we should rule out the possibility of maybe during the Easter egg or maybe in some other fashion such as Grief we might be able to play as the Victor's crew, since they are placed within the cryogenic chambers within the secret laboratory underneath Alcatraz. I think that it is possible that they will play a huge role within the storyline and the Easter egg of this map, and maybe, just maybe, they could be playable as well. But within today's video, I want to talk about the Mob of the Dead wonder weapon that might now actually be available on Blood of the Dead. I want to showcase to you guys some actual gameplay of it, because this could be a wonder weapon that we are able to use within Blood of the Dead. So if you do enjoy this video, a like and a subscription would be very much appreciated, but that's all out of the way, let's get straight on into it. So obviously, Blood of the Dead is not going to be a remaster of Mob of the Dead. It's going to have an entirely new storyline, an entirely new Easter egg, and also the map is now going to be a more accurate representation of the Alcatraz Island. It's going to be a lot larger, there's going to be new areas such as the secret laboratory underneath Alcatraz. It's going to be a much greater extended version of the original. Now if you're unaware, within the original Mob of the Dead there was actually a wonder weapon that never made its way into the full release of the game, and this was a severed richtofen head. Now the footage you're seeing on screen is actually courtesy of Sana Disc. I will leave a link to his channel down in this video's description. But essentially, this wonder weapon was going to be on Mob of the Dead, but unfortunately it was scrapped. We don't entirely know why it was scrapped. We don't entirely know what this wonder weapon was going to do, whether it was going to be some sort of grenade that you would throw, or whether you were going to be able to bite zombies with the head, or whether it was going to be, I don't know, a replacement to the meat within the cell block, the Grief version of Mob of the Dead. We do not know at this current point in time, but the thing is, with Blood of the Dead, coming out, I think that it's not too far out of the reach to suggest that this Mob of the Dead wonder weapon, the secret Mob of the Dead wonder weapon that was cancelled and never made its way into the full release of the game, might actually be playable on this map. Now, this is an undead richtofen head, so it's the undead richtofen, the Ultimus version of richtofen, but zombified, and his head was able to be used. And as I said, with the release of Blood of the Dead, I don't think it's too far out of the question to suggest we might actually be able to use this now, because with Blood of the Dead, I have been hearing some little bit of inklings within the community that essentially Blood of the Dead is going to have even more Easter eggs than Shadows of Evil, side Easter eggs that is, and Shadows of Evil had more side Easter eggs than any other map, so we are going to be overloaded with content on this map. Now obviously the original Mob of the Dead had the Hell's Retriever, it had the Hell's Redeemer, it also had the Golden Spork, there was a lot of cool little side Easter eggs you could do on this map. It also had the jump scare as well, and I think that all of those are going to return on Blood of the Dead. I don't know whether they're going to be the same steps in order to obtain these weapons and to activate these Easter eggs, or whether they might change these steps a bit for the new version, Blood of the Dead, but we are going to have a ton of new content on this map, so I don't think it's too far out of the reach, as I was saying, to think we might be able to use this other wonder weapon on Blood of the Dead. Now what I'm going to do for you guys right now is play a video I made quite a while ago, and this video explains why the zombified head of richtofen is on Mob of the Dead, and it explains the storyline for it, so it will make a bit more sense now that you actually get to play Blood of the Dead on October the 12th. So without further ado, thank you for watching and enjoy. Because for some reason the wonder weapon just didn't finish upon release. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were short for time, or maybe the Easter egg just didn't fit the theme of the map. I'm not really sure. So as you guys know, there is a wonder weapon that was originally going to be within Mob of the Dead, which was going to be a snapping richtofen head. Now the reason why I wanted to make a video about this, I know tons of people have already made a video about this, but the reason why I wanted to make a video about this is because I wanted to explain what this is in terms of the storyline, why there is an undead richtofen head within Mob of the Dead, because it makes perfect sense, or kind of does, in terms of the timeline. And I recently posted a video regarding the fact that the jump scare within Mob of the Dead is in fact Nero. I know people have known about this for a very long time. I made a video about this in 2015 before Black Ops 3 Zombies even released, talking about this, but I decided to recover it again on the channel because I found it interesting how the jump scare on Mob of the Dead is Nero from Shadows of Evil, and the jump scare on Shadows of Evil is the undead richtofen from Mob of the Dead. Obviously these two maps are basically pockets that have been taken out of Dimension 63, or well, they're still in Dimension 63, but they're sort of pockets shifted from reality. We've got the Shadow Man who shifted Morgue City from reality since the characters did bad things. Well, he basically tricked them into doing those bad things. And then we've got Mob of the Dead, which is another pocket shifted from reality, which I presume is some sort of purgatory-like realm, and I think it it's in control of Dr. Monty. He's probably the one who's perpetuated this, which I've got a whole video either before this video or after this video goes live talking about that. But within that video, I talked about why it makes sense for Nero to be the jump scare on Mob of the Dead in terms of the storyline, and how both maps, Shadows of Evil and Morgue City, sort of reflect from each other. Obviously, they both have references to either in each map. But in terms of why there is this snapping richtofen head within Mob of the Dead, makes sense in terms of the storyline, which I'm going to come on to. But before I get into that, I'm just going to play this clip from a recent interview with Jason Blundell as well as Zombros. I will leave a link to all of the Zombros co-hosts in this video's description. Make sure you go ahead, check them all out. But in that interview, Blundell mentioned this wonder weapon more specifically, and I think it's definitely worth a listen.
Is there any wonder weapons you've concepted that haven't made it into zombies that you were like, God, like it would have been so good for this map that you can talk about that you're not going to do in a future one, but you were like, if only this wonder weapon got in the map. It was a cool idea, but just, we couldn't do it.
You mean like the snapping richtofen head?
The what?
Oh, is this? I think I've seen this before.
No, I have not heard of this.
I've sent this to you. I know you've seen
Okay,
this.
all right then. I see a lot.
It's-
There's so much stuff. You know,
conversation.
I can't remember it all.
I think was it Mob of the Dead that I think somebody ripped it. I don't know, but I've seen this before.
Okay.
A render of it.
There's been different ideas. Very few, because usually wonder weapons take so much investment that it's very rare for them to be concepts and then thrown away.
Yep.
Even if a wonder weapon is not working, we'll just play with the values until we're happy with it.
Okay.
Even if it didn't get to where we wanted it to go originally or wasn't hitting a certain vibe. But because it's, as I say, weapons are such a huge investment to make and animate and check all its consistency and so forth. It's very, very rare that they're just left on the side.
Fascinating.
Well, let's not get away from the richtofen head though. Let's not try to dodge that. But so was that actually a wonder weapon that just didn't work out?
It was an idea that never made it onto the table. Yes, John.
Look at that smile. That's
That's
amazing.
I can imagine it working like the skull of nonstop weed. But with richtofen, that would have been freaking cool.
Oh, I remember the render now. I remember the head render. I thought, okay, I gotcha.
So in terms of the storyline, why this undead richtofen head is on Mob of the Dead is because on January the 10th, 2036, after Buried happens, this is obviously in the beginning timeline, Richtofen instructs undead Richtofen to pursue victors and recover their blood vials. Since obviously from the timeline, this is in the perspective of Richtofen, and we see that Maxis's endgame is canon for some reason, so Richtofen is now undead. I'm sure there is a timeline that we haven't seen yet, another perspective of the Chronorium, where Richtofen's endgame is canon. That could be what we see within the next game or something. But then on January the 19th, 2036, Primus Richtofen begins to manipulate Stullinger, opening a rift for Vixis to begin their new journey. Pursued by undead Richtofen and an army of the undead, Victus enters the rift. On January the 19th, 2036, Maxis destroys Earth and all its surviving inhabitants. However, within Dimension 63, on June the 4th, 1914, Richtofen is then visited by another version of himself. Now, this other version of himself is the undead Richtofen, who hands him some blood vials. He explains, you will need this blood. When the time comes, it will protect you before stepping back through the rift. Now, these blood vials are obviously of Sal and Finn from Mob of the Dead, which undead Richtofen collects for Primus Richtofen, who hands the blood to him prior to Origins. That's why Richtofen already has the blood prior to Origins. So obviously, all of the events leading up to Mob of the Dead occur, and due to the four characters doing all of these bad things, each of them dies. Al is murdered by Sal, Finn, and Billy, and due to this, Sal, Finn, and Billy are then executed by electric chair. Then Mob of the Dead happens. Sal, Finn, Billy, and Al battle waves of the undead as they find themselves trapped in a seemingly endless cycle. In the timeline, there's no mention of Al breaking the cycle, which, as I said, I think this is another timeline that we may see where the Richtofen endgame is canon. And maybe when the Richtofen endgame is canon, we instead see what happens when Al breaks the cycle and kills the other three characters, as opposed to Sal, Finn, and Billy killing Al. Then on April 16th, 1940, Richtofen arrives in Dimension 63, where he contacts members of the Illuminati and enlists their help to build a laboratory facility beneath Alcatraz. This Richtofen is the undead Richtofen. Then on April the 18th, 1940, Richtofen meets with Stanley Ferguson and convinces him to assist with the Illuminati's construction of the Alcatraz laboratory. Then on July the 3rd, 1941, Stanley Ferguson reports that the laboratory has been completed and that the subjects will be placed in the stasis chambers upon arrival. Then on July the 4th, 1941, Richtofen returns to to the lab under Alcatraz where he meets Victis. Arriving from the empty Earth with the Chronorium, upon reading the Chronorium, Richtofen discovers numerous timelines documenting their fates and learns about the blood vials. He would later rate on this page, "I know now what I must do, Edward Richtofen, 4th of the 7th, 41. Now Richtofen then enters a rift to acquire the blood of Sal and Finn. So if we scroll back up through the timeline, this is where we can see these events transpire. So on April the 1st, 1933, Al convinces Sal, Finn and Billy that they can build a plane and escape Alcatraz. On December the 2nd, 1933, realizing the plane will never be completed and embittered with rage, Sal, Finn and Billy plot to get revenge on Al. Then on December the 31st, 1933, Finn, Sal and Billy lure Al to the roof and kill him. Then on January the 11th, 1934, stepping through a rift, Richtofen secures the blood samples of Sal and Finn. This is the one that just read the Chronorium from the transit crew. So he went through a rift and collected the blood samples after the characters died. This is before they enter the purgatory-like realm and enter the cycle. Now bear in mind, this is before January the 19th, 1934, where Sal, Finn and Billy are executed by electric chair, found guilty of Al's murder. So he collects the blood samples from them whilst they're still alive, which is really weird. I don't know what that is all about, but that's what happens. I don't know how he does that, but it happens somehow. But that is why we have an undead Richtofen wonder weapon within the map, because undead Richtofen traveled there to collect the blood samples of Sal and Finn. Now it's weird why the head is just its head. That doesn't make much sense, because from the timeline we can see that undead Richtofen does not get beheaded anywhere in the storyline or anything like that, so that kind of doesn't make any sense, but it does fit the theme of this storyline. It also explains as to why we see his head as the jump scare on Shadows of Evil, because as I said, they reflect each other, the two maps, and he had been on Mob of the Dead. Now jumping forward, after Richtofen has collected the blood, what he then does is he then goes back to his younger self and gives the blood to the Primus Richtofen prior to Origins, and that's what I talked about earlier. That's what he then does. So then Victis is placed on ice to be kept safe until they are needed next. Then on July the 4th, 1941, Primus arrives to collect the Victis blood samples from Richtofen. Following Primus's departure, Richtofen learns the location of the summoning key and travels to his next location. And then on October the 1st, 1943, Stanley Ferguson leaves employment at Alcatraz, and then it gets into the whole storyline of Shadows of Evil. But yeah, I find this very interesting because some things don't make sense. He collects the blood vials from Sal and Finn whilst they are still alive, and why is he beheaded as the wonder weapon? There is something we're missing here that doesn't make sense. If you've got any thoughts, leave them down in the comment section down below. Also, how did he collect the blood samples from them? Because what we see is that he gets the blood from the transit crew by placing them in those cryogenic chambers. So Sal and Finn weren't in those chambers from what I can tell. Maybe they were. Maybe prior to them being put in the electric chair, they were put in these chambers and that's how he got the blood. So yeah, he gets the blood, then goes and gives it to the Primus Richtofen before Origins happens, then comes back, and then the Primus Richtofen along with the 3 other Primus characters come in and get the blood vials from the Victis crew, the transit crew, in between Zetsubo Noshima and Gorod Krovi. So essentially he bumps into 2 versions of the Primus Richtofen within the same time frame, which is crazy. But yeah, that's going to conclude today's video. Hopefully you have gone on to enjoy it. So without further ado, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for the latest and greatest Black Ops 3 Zombies news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.